72 seconds. That's how long Keisha Williams had to make Prince Andrew's bed each morning. 72 exact seconds, timed by the gold Cartier watch he'd positioned on the nightstand, face turned toward the door. The teddy bears came first. 12 stuffed animals arranged by height, left to right. The largest bear, a faded brown thing called Master Paddington, sat exactly 4 inches from the pillow's edge. The smallest, a white rabbit with one missing eye, anchored the right corner. Each animal faced the same direction, always toward the window, never toward the bed. Keisha's hands trembled as she smoothed the Egyptian cotton sheets. 3 months into this job at the Royal Lodge, and the rules still made her stomach twist. Page 7 of the household manual stated the pillows must be plumped but not fluffy. What did that even mean? Morning, Your Royal Highness. She kept her eyes down, focusing on the intricate pattern of the Persian rug. Prince Andrew stood in the doorway wearing only silk pajama bottoms. His chest hair caught the morning light streaming through the heavy curtains. The bears are crooked again, Keisha. They weren't. She'd measured them twice with the wooden ruler he'd given her on day 1. But she apologized anyway, reached for Master Paddington with steady fingers. Hi viewers, have you ever worked for someone who made you question your own sanity with their impossible demands? Your hands are shaking, he said, stepping closer. The scent of expensive cologne mixed with something else. Something that made her want to step back. Nervous about something? The question hung in the air like smoke. Keisha straightened Master Paddington's red bow tie, counting silently. 68 seconds. 4 seconds left. No, sir. Just concentrating on getting everything perfect. He laughed, a sound that didn't match his eyes. Perfect. Yes, I do appreciate perfection. His bare foot tapped against the hardwood floor. Tell me, Keisha, what do you think about when you're arranging my companions? The teddy bears stared at the window with their glassy eyes. 72 seconds exactly. She should leave now. The manual was clear about departure times. But Prince Andrew moved to block the doorway. I asked you a question. His voice dropped lower, the same tone he'd used yesterday when she'd forgotten to align the coffee cups by handle direction. What goes through that pretty little head of yours? Keisha's throat went dry. The other staff members had warned her about the questions. How they started innocent but twisted into something that made you feel dirty. Something that made you wonder if you'd imagine the whole thing later. I think about doing good work, Your Royal Highness. Good work. He repeated the words slowly, like he was tasting them. And do you think you do good work, Keisha? The question was a trap. Answer yes, and she was arrogant. Answer no, and she was incompetent. Either way, he'd found his opening. I try my best, sir. Your best. Another step closer. Now she could see the pale scar running along his collarbone, shaped like a question mark. Sometimes our best isn't quite enough, is it? The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 9 times. Breakfast prep started in 15 minutes. Mrs. Chun would be looking for her in the kitchen, wondering why the bed-making was taking so long. But Keisha couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Prince Andrew reached past her to adjust the white rabbit, his arm brushing against her shoulder. There. Much better. His fingers lingered on the stuffed animal's damaged eye. Funny how something broken can still be useful. The words hit her like ice water. Keisha forced herself to nod, to smile, to play the part of the grateful employee. But inside something hardened. A small voice whispered that this wasn't normal. That 72 seconds for bed-making wasn't about efficiency. It was about control. Same time tomorrow, Keisha. He stepped aside, finally clearing the doorway. And remember, the bears are always watching. She walked toward the door on unsteady legs, clutching the wooden ruler so tight her knuckles went white. Behind her, she heard him humming. A nursery rhyme she remembered from childhood, twisted into something that made her skin crawl. But just as she reached the threshold, Prince Andrew's voice stopped her cold. "Oh, and Keisha? Next week, I'll be showing you the room upstairs." The 12-page manual lay spread across Keisha's kitchen table like evidence in a murder case. Page 1. Domestic Standards for His Royal Highness's Personal Quarters. Pages 2 through 12. A descent into madness disguised as royal protocol. Keisha's roommate, Tanisha, leaned over her shoulder, reading aloud. Bare positioning must account for seasonal light variations, with summer arrangements favoring northwestern window exposure. She looked up, eyebrows raised. "Girl, this man wrote a whole dissertation about stuffed animals. Look at page 7. Keisha flipped through the laminated sheets. Each page bore the official Windsor crest at the top, making the contents feel both ridiculous and terrifying. Pillow indentation specifications. Tanisha squinted at the tiny print. Maximum depression depth, 1 3/4 inches. Minimum fluff recovery time, 37 seconds. She sat back hard in her chair. "Keisha, this is not normal rich people weird. This is something else." The manual had arrived by courier on Keisha's first day, delivered in a leather portfolio with her name embossed in gold letters. At the time, she'd felt honored. Special. Now the pages felt like a prison sentence written in royal blue ink. Page 9 is worse. Keisha's finger traced the detailed diagrams showing bare facial orientations. "See how he wants their eyes positioned? Never looking at the bed directly, but always maintaining visual proximity to sleeping area." She shuddered. "It's like he's creating an audience." Tanisha grabbed the manual, flipping pages rapidly. "Hold up. What's this section about? Seasonal bear rotation schedule?" Her voice climbed higher. "He's got different stuffed animals for different months? And backup bears in case the primary ones get damaged." The backup bears lived in a climate-controlled closet adjacent to his bedroom. Keisha had discovered them during her second week. Dozens of identical stuffed animals wrapped in tissue paper, each tagged with replacement dates and condition reports. The sight had made her physically sick. "Tanisha, there's something else." Keisha pulled out her phone, scrolling to a photo she'd secretly taken. "Look at this." The image showed a handwritten note clipped to Master Paddington's ear. In Prince Andrew's distinctive scrawl, Paddington observed irregular maintenance Tuesday. Discuss positioning protocols with staff member K. Williams. "He's taking notes on his teddy bears?" Tanisha's voice cracked. "Like they're reporting back to him?" Keisha nodded, remembering the cold sensation that had washed over her when she'd found the note. "But here's what really gets me. Look at the timestamp requirements. Page 11 detailed precise timing for every task. Bed making, 72 seconds. Curtain adjustment, 45 seconds. Bear arrangement, 93 seconds, including final positioning check." The margins were filled with handwritten amendments in red ink, adjusting times by single seconds. "He times everything?" Tanisha asked. "Everything. And if you're off by even 5 seconds, he makes you start over." Keisha's hands trembled as she spoke. "Last week, I was 3 seconds slow on the curtains. He made me redo them 6 times while he watched. Just watched." The kitchen fell quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Tanisha studied her friend's face, noting the dark circles under her eyes, the way her shoulders stayed permanently hunched. "Keisha, baby, this job is messing with your head. The worst part isn't the timing." Keisha's voice dropped to a whisper. It's how he looks at me when I'm working, like he's studying my reactions. Like the whole thing is some kind of experiment. She pulled out another document from the portfolio, a supplementary sheet titled Behavioral Expectations During Bear Maintenance. The language was formal, clinical, but the meaning was clear. Maintain eye contact with assigned tasks, minimize verbal responses, demonstrate appropriate reverence for His Royal Highness's personal preferences. Demonstrate appropriate reverence? Tanisha read aloud. For stuffed animals? That's not even the strangest part. Keisha flipped to a page marked with a yellow sticky note. Read this section about seasonal bear personalities. The text described how different bears required different handling based on their character traits and emotional needs. Master Paddington was dignified but approachable. The white rabbit was fragile, requiring gentle maintenance. A small brown bear named Churchill was stern, preferring minimal interaction. He's written psychological profiles for toys, Tanisha said slowly. This man has lost his mind. Keisha closed the manual, but kept her hands pressed flat against its cover. You know what scares me most? This isn't some hobby or quirky royal thing. This is a system. Every rule, every timing, every positioning. It's all designed to make me feel small, controlled, like I exist only to serve his weird fantasies. The realization had been building for weeks, but saying it out loud made it real. The manual wasn't about maintaining royal standards. It was about maintaining power. About reducing a grown woman to someone who could be ordered around like a child playing with dolls. Tanisha reached across the table and squeezed her friend's hand. So what are you going to do? Before Keisha could answer, her phone buzzed with a text message. The sender, Royal Lodge Management. The message contained just 4 words and a timestamp. Report early tomorrow. Special instructions. Prince Andrew stood at his bedroom window, still in yesterday's clothes. The white dress shirt hung wrinkled and open, revealing that same question mark scar. He hadn't moved from that spot for 10 minutes, just watching Keisha arrange the bears with mechanical precision. Stop! His voice cut through the morning silence. Start again. Keisha's hand froze on Master Paddington's worn fur. This was the 4th restart in 20 minutes. Her back ached from bending and straightening, her palms slick with sweat despite the room's morning chill. Something wrong with my technique, Your Royal Highness? He turned from the window, his eyes bloodshot and intense. Your technique is fine. It's your attitude I'm concerned about. He moved closer, each step deliberate. You seem distracted. The bears sat in perfect formation, exactly as specified in the manual. Heights aligned, faces positioned toward the window, spacing measured to the millimeter. But Prince Andrew circled the bed like a predator, finding fault in perfection. Perhaps we need to discuss your commitment to this position. Keisha's stomach dropped. She needed this job. The pay was triple what she'd made at the hotel, enough to help her mother with medical bills and still save money for college. But the cost was becoming unbearable. I'm completely committed, sir. Are you? He picked up the small brown bear, Churchill, and examined it closely. Tell me, Keisha, what do you see when you look at Churchill here? The question felt like stepping onto thin ice. Every answer could be wrong. I see. A well-maintained bear, Your Royal Highness. His laugh was sharp, humorless. A bear. Just a bear. He set Churchill down, but not in the correct position. What I see is attention to detail, respect for tradition, standards that separate the royal household from common chaos. Prince Andrew moved to stand directly behind her, close enough that she could feel his breath on her neck. But lately, I sense you view these standards as beneath you. No, sir. Never. Never. His hand reached past her to adjust Master Paddington, his arm brushing against her shoulder. Then why do I feel resistance in your movements? Why does every task seem to pain you? The truth stuck in her throat like broken glass. Because this is insane. Because grown men shouldn't have 72 stuffed animals. Because measuring bear placement to the millimeter is not normal. Because the way you watch me makes my skin crawl. I'm just trying to be careful, sir. Careful. He repeated the word thoughtfully. Yes, careful is important in this household. His fingers lingered on the teddy bear's bow tie. But so is enthusiasm, appreciation, gratitude for the opportunity to serve. Keisha forced herself to nod, to smile, to play the part. But something had shifted in his tone. Something that made her want to run. You know, Keisha, I've had many staff members over the years. Maids, valets, assistants. The ones who lasted understood something important. He paused, letting the silence stretch. They understood that working for royalty requires a special kind of flexibility. The word hung in the air like a threat. Keisha's hands shook as she reached for the white rabbit with the missing eye. What kind of flexibility, sir? Prince Andrew smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The kind that recognizes boundaries are different here. Expectations are higher. Personal space is less personal. He moved even closer, now standing directly beside her. His hand covered hers as she positioned the damaged rabbit. For instance, a common maid might feel uncomfortable with the employer's state of undress. But a royal maid understands that comfort is irrelevant. Only duty matters. Keisha's heart hammered against her ribs. His hand was cold, his grip firm enough to prevent her from pulling away. I understand, Your Royal Highness. Do you? Because yesterday I sensed judgment in your eyes. Today I feel tension in your movements. His thumb traced across her knuckles. I won't tolerate staff who make me feel unwelcome in my own quarters. The twisted logic hit her like a slap. He was the one creating discomfort, invading space, breaking professional boundaries. But somehow, in his mind, her reaction was the problem. Her discomfort was disrespectful. I apologize if I gave that impression, sir. Apologies are easy, Keisha. Actions matter more. Finally, he released her hand and stepped back. Which brings me to tomorrow's special assignment. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Keisha finished positioning the white rabbit with mechanical movements, buying time to steady her voice. Special assignment? The blue room upstairs. It requires personal attention. His smile returned, predatory and cold. Just the two of us. No interruptions from other staff. No rigid timing schedules. Just quality time to discuss your future here. Every instinct screamed danger. The blue room was off-limits to regular staff, accessible only by special key. Rumors circulated among the household employees about what happened behind that locked door, but no one spoke openly. No one dared. What time should I report, Your Royal Highness? After dinner, 8 o'clock sharp. He moved toward his dressing room, then paused. And Keisha? Wear something nice. Not the uniform. Something that shows you understand the honor of personal royal attention. The words made her stomach turn, but she managed to keep her expression neutral. Yes, sir. Prince Andrew disappeared into the dressing room, leaving Keisha alone with 72 pairs of glass eyes staring at nothing. She finished the bare arrangement with robotic precision, then walked toward the door on unsteady legs. But his voice followed her into the hallway, casual and terrifying. Oh, and bring the special cleaning supplies from the locked cabinet. You'll need them for what we're going to be doing upstairs. The locked cabinet sat in the basement storage room like a metal confession booth. Keisha stared at the key in her trembling hand, brass, ornate, with the Windsor crest etched into its head. Prince Andrew had pressed it into her palm that morning with instructions that made her blood run cold. "Special cleaning supplies," he'd said with that smile that never touched his eyes. "For special situations." The key turned with a soft click. Inside, shelves lined with bottles she didn't recognize. Industrial-strength bleach, carpet shampooing equipment, plastic sheeting folded into neat squares, and something that made her step back in horror. A leather-bound logbook titled Incident Management Protocols. Keisha pulled the logbook from its shelf with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The pages were filled with entries in different handwriting, different colored inks, spanning what looked like decades. Each entry followed the same format: date, room number, staff member, incident type, resolution method. March 15, 2019. Blue Room. M. Patterson. Behavioral correction required. Resolution: full carpet replacement, staff reassignment. June 3, 2020. Blue Room. S. Thompson. Misunderstanding of protocol. Resolution: deep cleaning, NDA renewal, generous severance. December 12, 2021. Blue Room. Williams. Inappropriate emotional response. Resolution: complete sanitization, medical consultation, staff relocation. The pattern became clear with each entry. Different women, same room, same vague descriptions of incidents and misunderstandings, all resolved with cleaning supplies and silence. Keisha's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "How's the fancy job going, baby? You've been so quiet lately." The simple question broke something inside her. How could she explain that her fancy job involved memorizing stuffed animal preferences and preparing mystery cleaning supplies for whatever happened in locked rooms? How could she tell her mother that she was terrified of her own employer? She photographed several pages of the logbook with shaking hands, then quickly returned it to its shelf. The cleaning supplies went into a canvas bag: bleach, scrub brushes, rubber gloves, and those unsettling plastic sheets. Each item felt like evidence in a crime that hadn't happened yet. The basement stairs creaked under her feet as she climbed toward the main house. 7:30 p.m. 30 minutes until her appointment in the Blue Room. 30 minutes to figure out how to survive whatever Prince Andrew had planned. In the kitchen, Mrs. Chun was finishing dinner cleanup, her movements efficient and purposeful. She looked up as Keisha entered, her eyes immediately finding the canvas bag. "You got the special supplies." It wasn't a question. Mrs. Chen's voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen this pattern before. "Have you ever been to the Blue Room?" Keisha asked quietly. Mrs. Chen's hands stilled on the dish towel. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then once, long time ago, her voice was barely a whisper. "Different person came back down." The words hit Keisha like ice water. "What do you mean?" "Some things change you." Mrs. Chun folded the towel with precise movements, avoiding eye contact. "Some things you can't unsee, can't unfeel." She finally looked up, her eyes full of warning. "You have family, yes? My mother. She's sick. Then you remember what matters. You remember who you are." Mrs. Chun moved closer, lowering her voice. "And you remember, whatever happens up there, it's not your fault. Never your fault." The kitchen door swung open. Prince Andrew entered wearing a silk robe over casual clothes, his hair freshly washed and styled. His eyes immediately found Keisha, then dropped to the canvas bag in her hands. "Excellent. Right on time." His voice was cheerful, conversational, as if they were discussing weekend plans. I trust you found everything on the list? Yes, Your Royal Highness. Wonderful. He moved to the kitchen counter, pouring himself a glass of wine from an expensive bottle. Mrs. Chun, you can finish up here and retire for the evening. Keisha and I have some detailed work to attend to upstairs. Mrs. Chen's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Good night, Your Royal Highness. As she passed Keisha, she squeezed her shoulder once, quickly, a silent message of support that felt like a lifeline. Prince Andrew sipped his wine, watching Mrs. Chen leave. When the door closed behind her, his entire demeanor shifted. The casual friendliness evaporated, replaced by something cold and calculating. The Blue Room has quite a history, you know? He swirled the wine in his glass, the liquid catching the kitchen lights. Important visitors, significant conversations. Moments that shaped the royal household's understanding of discretion. Keisha's mouth went dry. What kind of work will we be doing, sir? His smile returned, sharp as broken glass. The kind that requires absolute privacy, complete trust. He finished the wine in one gulp, then set the glass down with a soft clink. The kind that separates loyal staff from those who might misunderstand their position here. The canvas bag felt heavier with each word. Keisha forced herself to stand straighter, to meet his gaze despite every instinct screaming at her to run. I understand my position, Your Royal Highness. Do you? He moved closer, circling her like he'd done around the bed that morning. Because loyalty in the royal household means more than following protocols. Keisha. It means understanding that some experiences are educational, character building. The euphemisms made her skin crawl, but she managed to nod. Yes, sir. Excellent. Prince Andrew headed toward the kitchen door, then paused. Oh, and Keisha? Leave your phone down here. Electronic devices can be distracting during important conversations. The request felt like a trap closing. But refusing would mean losing the job, abandoning her mother's medical bills, admitting defeat. Keisha pulled out her phone and placed it on the kitchen counter with hands that betrayed nothing of the terror racing through her veins. Perfect. Now, shall we head upstairs? The Blue Room is waiting. The Blue Room door stood open like a mouth, revealing shadows that seemed to move in the dim hallway light. Prince Andrew's hand rested on the small of Keisha's back, guiding her forward with pressure that felt both casual and threatening. After you, he said, his voice carrying that same cheerful tone that made her skin crawl. Keisha stepped across the threshold, the canvas bag heavy in her grip. The room was smaller than she'd expected, more intimate than intimidating. Deep blue wallpaper covered every surface, broken only by a single window covered with heavy curtains. A leather armchair sat in one corner, facing a small sofa upholstered in matching blue fabric. Between them, a coffee table held a crystal decanter and 2 glasses. But it was what she didn't see that made her heart race. No cleaning supplies anywhere. No obvious mess requiring attention. Nothing that would justify the industrial-strength chemicals she'd brought from the basement. Prince Andrew closed the door behind them with a soft click, then turned the lock. The sound echoed in the small space like a gunshot. Beautiful room, isn't it? He moved to the window, adjusting the curtains to block out the last traces of evening light. My grandmother decorated it personally, said every royal household needed a space for private contemplation. Keisha remained near the door, every muscle tense. What would you like me to clean first, Your Royal Highness? His laugh was low, almost amused. Clean? Oh, Keisha, we're not here to clean. He gestured toward the sofa. Please sit. We have important matters to discuss. I prefer to stand, sir. I prefer that you sit. The cheerful tone vanished, replaced by steel. Now. She moved to the sofa like a condemned prisoner, setting the canvas bag at her feet. The leather was cold against her legs, expensive and smooth. Prince Andrew settled into the armchair across from her, close enough that their knees almost touched. Do you know what this room is really for, Keisha? She shook her head, not trusting her voice. Understanding. He poured amber liquid from the crystal decanter into both glasses, then offered one to her. Clarity about expectations, about the true nature of service in a royal household. The glass felt heavy in her hands. The alcohol sent sharp and medicinal. She didn't drink, just held it like a shield. You see, traditional employment relationships have boundaries, rules, protections. Prince Andrew sipped his drink, watching her over the rim. But royal service transcends such limitations. It requires complete dedication, complete availability. The euphemisms were getting worse, each word dripping with implication. Keisha forced herself to maintain eye contact, to show no fear despite the terror clawing at her chest. I am dedicated, Your Royal Highness. Are you? He leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Because dedication means accepting that your comfort, your preferences, your boundaries, they're secondary to royal needs. His hand reached across the space between them, fingers brushing against her knee. It means understanding that when I require personal attention, you provide it without question, without judgment. Keisha's entire body went rigid. The touch was light, almost casual, but it carried the weight of 1,000 threats. Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. His grip tightened slightly. Just clarity. This is how things work here, Keisha. How they've always worked. The cleaning supplies aren't for afterward, they're for during. To maintain discretion. The room felt like it was shrinking, the blue walls pressing closer. Keisha's mind raced through options. Scream, run, fight. But the locked door, the isolated location, the power imbalance made everything feel impossible. Previous staff members learned to appreciate the educational value of personal royal attention. His thumb traced a small circle on her knee. Those who embraced their role found it quite rewarding, financially and otherwise. And those who didn't? The question escaped before she could stop it. Prince Andrew's smile turned predatory. Well, that's what the incident management protocols are for. Generous severance packages, excellent references, ironclad non-disclosure agreements. His eyes glittered in the dim light. Everyone leaves satisfied with the arrangement. The logbook entries suddenly made horrifying sense. The vague descriptions, the cleaning supplies, the staff relocations, all covering up the same pattern of abuse disguised as employment. Of course, some staff members require more convincing than others. His hand moved higher, fingers pressing against her thigh. But I find that financial pressure can be quite motivating. Medical bills, for instance. Sick mothers requiring expensive treatment. The threat was crystal clear. Submit or lose everything, the job, the money, her mother's health care. Keisha's hands shook around the glass, the amber liquid sloshing against the crystal. I see you understand. Prince Andrew's voice was almost gentle now, like a teacher praising a slow student. Good. That makes this much easier for both of us. He stood up, moving toward a small cabinet Keisha hadn't noticed before. From inside, he retrieved a document folder and a silver pen. Standard confidentiality agreement. Enhanced version. Sign now before we begin, and there won't be any complications later. The contract was thick, filled with legal language that blurred together through her tears. But certain phrases jumped out. Complete discretion regarding all aspects of royal service, absolute prohibition on disclosure of personal interactions, significant financial penalties for breach of confidentiality. The pen is right there. His voice carried patience mixed with steel. Just your signature, and we can proceed with your expanded duties. Keisha stared at the contract, her mind spinning through impossible calculations. Sign and become complicit in her own abuse. Refuse and lose everything her mother needed to survive. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. But as her hand moved toward the pen, she remembered Mrs. Chen's words. You remember who you are. She was Keisha Williams. She had survived foster care, poverty, and a dozen dead-end jobs. She had dreams beyond this blue room, goals that didn't include becoming another entry in someone's incident logbook. The pen stayed on the table. I need to think about this, she said quietly. Prince Andrew's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his features. Think about what? This is a tremendous opportunity, an honor that few staff members receive. I understand that, sir, but this is a big decision. She stood up slowly, deliberately. I'd like to discuss it with my family first. Your family? His voice climbed higher, incredulous. This conversation stays in this room, Keisha. That's non-negotiable. She moved toward the canvas bag, her movements careful and measured. Of course, Your Royal Highness. I just meant, I need time to properly appreciate the honor you're offering. The lie tasted bitter, but it bought her space. Prince Andrew studied her face, searching for deception. Finally, he nodded slowly. Very well. 24 hours to appreciate the situation. His smile returned, cold and patient. But understand, this offer expires tomorrow evening. After that, other arrangements will need to be made. The threat was unmistakable. Keisha nodded, picking up the canvas bag with hands that had stopped shaking. Thank you for your patience, sir. Prince Andrew moved to unlock the door, his movements sharp with barely contained frustration. Same time tomorrow, Keisha. And next time we'll finish what we started. As she walked through the doorway, his voice followed her into the hall, casual and terrifying. Oh, and don't forget, Mrs. Chun retires early tonight. In case you were thinking of having any inappropriate conversations about royal household matters. Chapter 6. The Human Resources file cabinet stood wide open at 3 in the morning, its metal drawers gleaming under Keisha's phone flashlight. Security had changed shifts 20 minutes ago. Mrs. Chun had slipped her the master key with trembling fingers and a whispered warning. Find what you need fast. Keisha's hands moved through manila folders with desperate efficiency. Williams Keisha, her own file, surprisingly thick for 3 months of employment. But it was the files behind hers that made her blood run cold. Patterson Miranda, Thompson Shayla, Williams Aisha, all marked with red stamps, confidential, royal household management. Miranda Patterson's file contained a resignation letter dated the day after her incident logbook entry. The handwriting looked shaky, uncertain. Personal reasons requiring immediate departure. Grateful for the generous severance package. Committed to maintaining complete confidentiality regarding household operations. Attached to the letter was a medical report from a private clinic. Keisha squinted at the clinical language, but certain phrases jumped out. Patient reports traumatic incident, recommendation for extended psychological counseling. Physical examination reveals evidence consistent with reported assault. The report was signed by Dr. Marcus Bennett, with a handwritten note in the margin. Patient refused police referral. Declined to identify perpetrator. Accepted alternative resolution through employer. Shayla Thompson's file told the same story. Resignation letter. Medical report. Generous severance check stub for $50,000. And a legal document titled Enhanced Non-Disclosure Agreement with Punitive Damages Clause. The NDA was 15 pages of legal language designed to silence victims forever. Employee agrees that any disclosure of confidential royal household matters will result in immediate financial penalties, not to exceed £500,000, and potential criminal prosecution under the Official Secrets Act. Keisha photographed each page with shaking hands, her phone's camera flash strobing in the dark office. 7 different women. 7 identical patterns. 7 lives destroyed and then buried under money and legal threats. But it was the 8th file that made her gasp out loud. Williams, Aisha. Same last name. Different first name. The employment dates showed she'd worked at the Royal Lodge 5 years ago. The resignation letter was brief, professional. But the attached police report told a different story. Complainant alleges sexual assault by unnamed royal household member. Investigation terminated due to lack of physical evidence and complainant's subsequent withdrawal of cooperation. Case marked inactive, pending further developments. Aisha Williams had tried to fight, had gone to the police, had attempted to seek justice through official channels. The investigation had lasted exactly 6 days before being quietly closed. A handwritten note was clipped to the police report, signed by someone called Royal Protection Services. Matter resolved through appropriate channels. Complainant relocated to Edinburgh with full compensation package. No further action required. Keisha's phone buzzed with a text message that made her heart stop. The sender was listed as unknown number, but the message was clear. Return to your quarters immediately. Your movements are being monitored. She grabbed the most damaging files and stuffed them into her jacket, then closed the cabinet as quietly as possible. The hallway stretched empty in both directions, but she could feel eyes watching from somewhere in the shadows. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. The Blue Room appointment remains scheduled for tomorrow evening. Failure to appear will result in immediate termination and forfeiture of all benefits. The threats were escalating, becoming more direct. Someone knew she was digging into the files. Someone was tracking her movements through the house. The Royal Lodge wasn't just a workplace. It was a prison designed to keep secrets buried. But as Keisha made her way back to the staff quarters, she realized something important. The files proved she wasn't alone. 7 other women had survived whatever happened in that blue room. 7 other women had stories that needed telling. And somewhere in Edinburgh, Aisha Williams was living proof that escape was possible. Keisha reached her room just as footsteps echoed from the main staircase. Heavy boots, multiple people, moving with purpose toward the administrative offices she'd just left. She locked her door and pressed her back against it, listening to muffled voices and the sound of doors opening and closing. They were checking the offices, looking for signs of intrusion. Her phone lit up with one final message, this one from a number she recognized, Mrs. Chen. They know someone was in the files. Tomorrow they'll search staff quarters. Whatever you found, get it out tonight. Through her window, Keisha could see a black sedan parked at the end of the driveway, its occupants barely visible in the darkness. Royal Protection Services, the cleanup crew that made problems disappear. She had less than 12 hours to decide. Become another entry in the incident logbook, or find a way to make sure the truth finally came out. The decision was made for her when she heard Prince Andrew's voice echoing from the hallway, casual and terrifying. Check every room. Someone's been reading things they shouldn't. And when you find them, bring them to me personally. Chapter 7. Tanisha's apartment door flew open before Keisha could knock twice. "Girl, you look like you've seen a ghost." She pulled her friend inside, checking the hallway before closing and locking the door behind them. "What happened?" Keisha dumped the stolen files onto the kitchen table, her hands still shaking from the midnight drive across London. "I found them. All of them. 7 women, Tanisha. 7 women who went through the same thing." "The same thing as what?" Tanisha picked up Miranda Patterson's file, scanning the medical report. Her face went pale as she read. "Oh my God. This is rape." Keisha said the word they'd both been dancing around for weeks. "He's been raping his staff for years, then paying them to stay quiet about it." Tanisha spread the files across the table like evidence in a murder case. Each folder contained the same pattern: employment records, incident reports, medical documentation, legal settlements, and enforced silence. How is this possible? How does someone get away with this for so long? Money, power, legal threats. Keisha pulled out her phone and showed Tanisha the photos she'd taken of the incident logbook. "Look at these entries. They go back decades. This isn't some recent thing. It's a system." The documentation was overwhelming in its scope and precision. Every assault was recorded, categorized, and resolved through the same machinery of wealth and intimidation. The royal household had perfected the art of buying silence. "Here's what really gets me," Keisha said, pulling out a document titled Staff Management Protocols. "They have written procedures for this. Actual policies for handling what they call misconduct allegations against royal family members." Tanisha read aloud. "Upon receipt of complaint regarding inappropriate conduct by royal household member, implementing manager will 1. Isolate complainant from other staff. 2. Arrange immediate medical consultation with approved healthcare provider. 3. Initiate confidential resolution process. 4. Ensure appropriate compensation and relocation assistance." "It's a playbook for covering up crimes," Keisha said. "They've turned sexual assault into a human resources issue." The most damaging document was a financial ledger showing payments to resolved personnel matters over the past 10 years. The total exceeded £2 million. Dozens of women had been bought, silenced, and disappeared from royal employment with nothing but money to show for their trauma. "But here's the thing that gives me hope," Keisha said, pulling up a contact she'd found in Aisha Williams' file. "This woman fought back. She went to the police before they could by her silence." Aisha Williams' case file contained something the others didn't: a detective's card with handwritten notes on the back. "Contact Detective Inspector Jamal Roberts if you need help. Some of us remember cases that shouldn't have been dropped." Tanisha studied the card. "You think this detective would still listen? After 5 years? Only one way to find out." Keisha dialed the number with trembling fingers. It rang 4 times before a gravelly voice answered. "Roberts. Detective Inspector Roberts? My name is Keisha Williams. I have information about a case you investigated 5 years ago. Aisha Williams." A long pause. Then, "Where are you calling from?" "London. I worked at the Royal Lodge." "Don't say another word over the phone." The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. "Can you get to Paddington Station?" "Platform 7. 1 hour." The line went dead. Keisha stared at her phone, heart racing. "He wants to meet. Tonight." "This is really happening," Tanisha whispered. "You're really going to take down a prince?" Before Keisha could answer, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Miss Williams, this is Royal Protection Services. You have something that belongs to us. Return it immediately or face the consequences." A second text arrived immediately after. Your friend Tanisha Morrison, 47, Brixton Road, Flat 3B, lovely neighborhood, would hate for anything unfortunate to happen. The threats had found them. Somehow, despite all their precautions, the royal protection apparatus had tracked Keisha to her friend's apartment. They knew exactly where she was, exactly who mattered to her. Tanisha's face went white as she read the messages. They know where I live. How do they know where I live? Because they're not just covering up crimes. They're running a surveillance operation. Keisha grabbed the files and stuffed them into a backpack. We have to go. Now. Go where? If they found me here, they can find us anywhere. Not anywhere. Keisha headed for the door, then paused. Tanisha, I need you to do something for me. Something that might save both our lives. She pulled out her phone and opened the camera app. I need you to record me, right now, everything I'm about to say, then upload it everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Send it to every news outlet you can find. What are you going to say? Keisha took a deep breath, looking directly into the camera. The truth, all of it, before they can stop me. Tanisha hit record just as footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Heavy boots, multiple people, moving with purpose toward apartment 3B. Start talking, Tanisha whispered. Fast. Imagine standing in that hallway at the Royal Lodge, watching Prince Andrew emerge from the blue room at midnight, adjusting his silk robe like he'd just finished a business meeting. Imagine knowing that behind that locked door, another woman's life had just been destroyed, and you could do nothing but pretend you hadn't seen anything. That's what Keisha Williams faced every single day. Detective Inspector Jamal Roberts sat across from Keisha in the crowded coffee shop, his weathered face grim as he reviewed the stolen files. Steam rose from his untouched cup as he flipped through page after page of documented abuse disguised as employment records. This is bigger than I thought, he said quietly. When Aisha Williams came to me 5 years ago, I knew she was telling the truth. But the case got buried so fast, I barely had time to take her statement. Buried by who? Keisha asked. Orders from above. Way above. The kind of phone calls that end careers if you ask too many questions. Roberts closed Miranda Patterson's file and rubbed his temples. But this changes everything. This is evidence of systematic abuse spanning decades. Keisha pulled. Prince Andrew has been sexually assaulting his female staff for decades, then paying them to stay silent. Roberts watched the video with growing amazement. You put your face on this? Used your real name? Had to. Anonymous accusations disappear. But when someone puts their face on camera, stakes their reputation on the truth, that's harder to make go away. The detective's phone buzzed with a call he immediately declined. Then another. Then a third. They're already trying to shut this down. My supervisor, his supervisor, people whose names I don't even recognize. But it's too late, isn't it? Keisha asked. Once something goes viral, it can't be unviral. Roberts nodded slowly. The royal protection apparatus is designed to handle isolated complaints, individual victims who can be bought or intimidated into silence. But they're not equipped for social media firestorms. Keisha's phone showed the video's view count climbing rapidly. 50,000 views. 75,000. 100,000. Comments poured in from other women sharing similar stories of powerful employers who'd crossed lines and faced no consequences. Look at this, she said, showing Roberts the comments section. This happened to me at a law firm. Same thing with my boss at the bank. Rich men think they can buy silence. This isn't just about Prince Andrew. It's about every woman who's been told to stay quiet for the sake of her job. The detective studied the engagement numbers with professional interest. Traditional media might ignore this for days, wait for official statements. But social media doesn't wait. This is spreading faster than they can contain it. A new notification popped up on Keisha's screen. BBC News wants to interview you. CNN International requesting comment. Guardian seeking verification of claims. Mainstream media is picking it up, she said. Once that happens, it becomes news they have to cover, not news they can choose to ignore. Roberts leaned back in his chair, a smile creeping across his face for the first time since they'd met. You know what this means? I can reopen Aisha Williams' case. These files give me probable cause to investigate not just one assault, but a pattern of criminal conduct. What about the Royal Protection Services? The legal threats. Hard to threaten someone when millions of people are watching. He gathered the files into a neat stack. Public attention is the one thing they can't buy or intimidate. Once the story breaks wide enough, they have to respond through official channels. Keisha's video had reached 200,000 views and climbing. Screenshots were being shared across platforms faster than any takedown notice could remove them. The story was developing its own momentum, spreading through networks of outraged viewers who refused to let another powerful man escape consequences. There's something else, Roberts said, pulling out his own phone. I kept copies of everything from Aisha Williams' case, even after it was officially closed. Police reports, medical records, witness statements, all stored in my personal files. He scrolled through photos of documents, evidence that had been buried for 5 years. I've been waiting for someone brave enough to go public. Someone willing to put their face on the story and make it impossible to ignore. So what happens now? Keisha asked. Now we turn this social media firestorm into a criminal investigation. We contact every woman in these files. Let them know they're not alone anymore. We build a case so airtight that money and royal connections can't make it disappear. Roberts stood up, extending his hand to Keisha. You did something extraordinary today. You turned yourself from a victim into a catalyst for justice. But as they shook hands, Keisha's phone buzzed with a message that made her blood run cold. The sender was Prince Andrew himself. Congratulations on your 15 minutes of fame. Enjoy them while you can. Some stories have very permanent endings. Prince Andrew's silk pajamas hung wrinkled and stained as he paced the Royal Lodge's main drawing room. His phone pressed against his ear with white-knuckled intensity. I don't care what it costs. Make this disappear. Now. Through the window, Keisha could see news vans lined up along the estate's main gate like vultures. BBC, CNN, Sky News, every major outlet represented. Reporters with cameras and microphones, waiting for official statements that would never come. The prince's voice carried through the thin walls as she packed her belongings from the staff quarters. What do you mean it's gone viral? Everything goes viral these days. Handle it the same way we always handle staff problems. But this wasn't a staff problem anymore. This was a global news story. Keisha's video had reached 2 million views overnight. #Royal Abuse was trending worldwide. Victims from across the Commonwealth were sharing their own stories of powerful employers who'd faced no consequences for crossing boundaries. Mrs. Chan appeared in the doorway, her face a mixture of pride and terror. They're looking for you everywhere. Royal protection, private security, people in expensive suits I don't recognize. Let them look, Keisha said, folding her uniform for the last time. I'm not hiding anymore. The other staff are talking, Mrs. Chun continued, sharing their own stories, things they saw but were too afraid to report. Your courage is spreading. Through the walls, Prince Andrew's voice climbed higher, more desperate. 7 figures? Fine. 8 figures? Whatever it takes. But I want her discredited by tonight. The irony was perfect. For decades, he'd controlled the narrative through money and legal threats. Now he was trapped in the one place where wealth couldn't buy silence, the court of public opinion. Keisha's phone showed the view count continuing to climb. 2.5 million. 3 million. International news outlets were now covering the story independently, interviewing legal experts about royal immunity and employment law. A text from Detective Roberts. Formal investigation launched. 3 more victims have come forward in the past 6 hours. Case file growing rapidly. Another from Tanisha. You're on the front page of every newspaper in the country. Girl, you did it. But it was the message from an unknown number that made Keisha smile. This is Aisha Williams. I've been waiting 5 years for someone to speak up. Thank you for giving me my voice back. Prince Andrew's pacing grew more frantic. His phone calls more heated. Parliamentary inquiry? On what grounds? This is clearly a disgruntled employee making false accusations for attention. Except the evidence was overwhelming. The files Keisha had stolen contained enough documentation to support criminal charges. Medical reports, financial records, legal settlements, a paper trail of systematic abuse that couldn't be explained away. The Royal Lodge had become a prison for its primary resident. Security kept him locked inside while protesters gathered outside the gates. Every attempt to leave brought fresh camera crews and shouted questions he couldn't answer. Your Royal Highness, Mrs. Chun called through his door, her voice carrying new confidence. Several staff members are requesting meetings with Scotland Yard investigators. Shall I schedule appointments? The silence that followed was deafening. Prince Andrew's empire of control was crumbling from within. The very people he'd intimidated into silence were now lining up to tell their stories. Keisha finished packing and walked through the Royal Lodge one final time. Past the blue room with its locked door and terrible secrets. Past the basement storage with its incident management supplies. Past the administrative offices where files documented decades of covered-up crimes. But it was the teddy bear room that gave her the most satisfaction. Master Paddington and his 71 companions sat in their precisely arranged formation, glass eyes staring at nothing. The 12-page manual lay open on the nightstand, its obsessive timing requirements now looking pathetic rather than intimidating. A grown man who needed stuffed animals arranged by compass direction wasn't a figure of power. He was a deeply damaged individual whose wealth had enabled his worst impulses for far too long. Prince Andrew appeared in the doorway, no longer the confident predator from the blue room. His hair was disheveled, his expensive clothes wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion and panic. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice carried no conviction. "People like you don't win against people like me." Keisha turned to face him one final time, her voice steady and clear. "You're right. This isn't over. It's just beginning. Every victim you silenced is finding their voice. Every crime you covered up is coming to light. Your money can't buy back your reputation once the world knows who you really are." She walked toward the main entrance, leaving him standing alone among his army of teddy bears. Through the windows, she could see the news crews preparing for evening broadcasts. The story that had started with one woman's courage was now a global scandal that would follow him for the rest of his life. The Royal Lodge gates swung open for the last time as Keisha Williams walked toward freedom, toward justice, toward a future where powerful men could no longer buy silence with threats and money. Behind her, Prince Andrew remained trapped in his gilded cage, facing a reckoning that no amount of royal privilege could delay. The truth doesn't always lead to a jail cell, but it leads to the end of a legacy. 6 months later, Prince Andrew's titles were gone. His royal patronages stripped away one by one. The Royal Lodge sat empty except for security guards and the slowly accumulating dust of abandonment. The teddy bears remained in their positions, glass eyes witnessing the collapse of the empire they'd helped enable. Keisha Williams stood in the BBC studios, preparing for her final interview about the case that had changed everything. Detective Roberts had called that morning with the news she'd been waiting for. Formal criminal charges were being filed, not just against Prince Andrew, but against the entire network of enablers who'd helped cover up decades of abuse. The Royal Protection Services, the private medical providers, the lawyers who wrote those NDAs, everyone who participated in the system of silence, Roberts had explained. Your courage didn't just expose one predator. It revealed an entire apparatus designed to protect powerful criminals. The interviewer, a sharp-eyed woman named Sarah Chun, leaned forward with obvious respect. Keisha, when you first spoke out, did you imagine it would lead to this level of systematic change? I just wanted other women to know they weren't alone, Keisha replied. But what we discovered was bigger than any of us realized. This wasn't one man's criminal behavior. It was an institutional failure that allowed abuse to continue for generations. The numbers were staggering. 47 women had come forward with similar experiences across various royal households. The financial settlements exceeded £10 million. Parliamentary inquiries were ongoing into how such systematic abuse had been covered up for so long. What's your message to other survivors of workplace abuse? Sarah asked. Keisha looked directly into the camera, speaking to the millions of viewers who'd followed her story from the beginning. Your voice matters. Your experience matters. No amount of money, no level of power, no legal threat can change the truth. And once you speak that truth out loud, it becomes impossible to silence. The studio monitors showed social media reactions pouring in real time. Survivors sharing their own stories. Support groups forming in dozens of countries. A global movement built on the foundation of one woman's refusal to be bought into silence. But it was the personal messages that meant the most. Aisha Williams had returned to London, ready to testify in the criminal proceedings. Miranda Patterson and Shayla Thompson had both found the courage to speak publicly about their experiences. Mrs. Chun had been promoted to head of household management at Buckingham Palace, tasked with implementing new staff protection protocols. There's been criticism, Sarah continued, that your allegations damaged the reputation of the royal family as an institution. How do you respond to that? Keisha's answer was immediate and unwavering. Institutions that protect predators don't deserve to maintain their reputations. The royal family's credibility wasn't damaged by my speaking out. It was damaged by decades of covering up crimes. I just made it impossible to ignore anymore. The interview concluded with Keisha's announcement of the Survivors Justice Foundation, a legal advocacy group she'd established with her settlement money. We're going to make sure that every woman who faces this kind of abuse has access to legal resources, media support, and the knowledge that someone will believe them. As the cameras stopped rolling, Sarah shook her hand warmly. You've inspired a generation of women to speak truth to power. That's a legacy worth having. Walking out of the BBC building, Keisha felt the weight of the past year settling on her shoulders. The death threats had stopped. The legal challenges had been resolved. Prince Andrew faced trial in 3 months, his royal immunity officially revoked by parliamentary vote. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tanisha. Watching you on TV, crying proud tears. You did it, girl. You actually did it. Another from Detective Roberts. Final witness statements collected. Prosecution confident in conviction. Justice is coming. And one more, from a number she didn't recognize. I'm a maid in Dubai. Saw your story. My employer thinks his money makes him untouchable. Doesn't. Thank you for showing me that silence isn't my only option. The movement was spreading beyond royal households, beyond British employment law, beyond any single case or country. Women everywhere were realizing that their voices had power, that their experiences mattered, that silence wasn't protection. It was complicity. Standing on the London street, watching normal people go about their daily lives, Keisha realized something profound had changed. Not just for her, not just for the royal family, but for every person who'd ever been told to stay quiet for the sake of someone else's reputation. The truth had won, not through violence or revenge, but through courage, persistence, and the simple act of refusing to be silenced. That night, as news outlets around the world covered the latest developments in the royal abuse scandal, one fact became impossible to ignore. A single woman's decision to speak out had toppled one of the most protected institutions in the world. Prince Andrew would spend the rest of his life as a cautionary tale about the limits of privilege. But Keisha Williams would be remembered as the woman who proved that no one is too powerful to face consequences for their crimes. The teddy bears still sat in the royal lodge, gathering dust in their precise formations. But their witness days were over. The real witnesses, the survivors who'd found their voices, were just getting started. This story represents more than one person's journey from victim to advocate. It's proof that speaking truth to power isn't just possible, it's essential. When we share these stories, when we support survivors, when we refuse to let wealth and influence by silence, we create a world where justice isn't just a privilege for the powerful. What's your story? Have you ever witnessed abuse of power being covered up? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own courage. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories that inspire change and create opportunities for all of us to support each other. Together, we can make sure that truth always wins, no matter how powerful the people trying to hide it. The revolution starts with one voice. Make sure yours is heard.